and welcome to this brand new episode of HR Voices. This is the season 3 of HR Voices. On this platform, we invite top CHROs and HR leaders from the corporate world and also founders, CXOs from the exceptional HR tech and HR solution companies. These visionary individuals are thought leaders and disruptors bringing change in the people management landscape. When you consider the future of work, does it spark excitement or anxiety? You wouldn't be alone if you admitted to both. HR leaders are tasked with the anticipating disruptions while admitting to both. HR leaders are the ones who are driving the organizations to embrace these changes. An organization run by AI is not a futuristic concept anymore. Such technology is already a part of many workplaces and will continue to shape the landscape of HR. Let us discuss today what is the view of the HR leaders when it comes to the very real pressure that they are facing in guiding the organizations and the workforce in their organizations. The topic for today is HR Visionaries, shaping the future of workforce with AI and technology. I welcome our three very special guests who are joining us for this conversation. We have with us Mr. Mohit Kumar, he's the President of HR, Hindalco Industries Limited. Mr. Sahil Nayar, he's HR leader and influencer. Mr. Srinath Gururajarao, Senior VP HR, Simple Energy. Welcome all of you. Straight away, go to the first question that we have. And this question is open to all of you, and I'll start with Mohit, you. How has the rapid advancement of AI and technology transformed the role of HR leaders when you're preparing your workforce for the future?
That's great. Thanks, Bilquis. So we have been part of this India growth story for at least last 3 decades, a rapid growth. And we always wished that we had more resources. We had 10 hands, 2 minds, 3 hearts to do the possibility which is there as the India growth story. And AI as a uh, friend offers that possibility of resourcefulness. How it is offering that? The efficiency part of the work, that is, how do you intelligently scan through the loads of CVs and come to the right CV to the for the interview? How do you create the experience for the candidate and for the employees? How do you do the real time performance analytics? How do you do the real time sentiment analysis? So all that is freeing the bandwidth by doing this task far more efficiently, and it's freeing the bandwidth for what? Freeing the bandwidth for what humans only can do it. That is coaching and mentoring, working on the strategic forecasting, strategic workforce planning, capability planning and development, creating a real human touch culture. Yeah. So it's a high tech and high touch culture that we're able to do by making AI and technology a friend of ours. So I see it as a good possibility, Bilkis.
Very well said. Sahil, I want to understand from you how the role of HR leaders has changed over times while preparing the workforces.
Sure. First of all, thank you so much for having me over in this podcast. Before I come straight to your question, I think I want to take a step back and actually tell you that I very firmly believe that the corporate world is a very clear reflection of society, right? We've seen this across the globe where certain countries have appointed a minister for artificial intelligence.
Absolutely.
Come to the India story. The India story of Viksit Bharat over the last couple of years has been so phenomenal that on one hand you have India, on the other hand you have Bharat. But connecting India and Bharat is UPI. Who ever thought that you could get down from your house and buy kanda batata and buy groceries just by the click of a button?
That's true.
It is not about you and I going there and scanning our phones, which we could do even at a 5-star, but it is about that guy sitting out there who has a UPI code. He is the guy who used to have cash moving all around and today prefers money to move there. Point number one is what I'm referring to is the mindset change. So when we look at AI and we look at the human resource function that earlier in the day was personnel, moved across to HR, moved across to human capital, you can put old wine in a new bottle. But if the mindset doesn't change, you're not going to embrace AI, you're going to fight AI. And therefore, fighting AI is not going to be the solution. The first way is how do you embrace AI to do things that otherwise you found it difficult to do, you found it time consuming to do, and more importantly, we found it very, very, very difficult to jog our memory to say what happened in the last appraisal discussion. Today, you have everything available with data, with analytics, and with predictive analytics to tell you what the future has. But having said all of this, we need to very clearly remember as HR professionals and the community at large that AI is only as good as what we teach the machine. So if we are going to feed in our biases into the machine is going to learn what we teach the machine. And therefore, my point number two is very important for us to know where should we leverage AI and where should we leverage our natural intelligence over artificial intelligence. And very quickly, point number three, as we get to Viksit Bharat, I think the importance for HR professionals to step up is to enable business outcomes. It is very important for HR not just to be a data protector or a data provider, but more importantly, leverage access to phenomenal data that HR has to really crystal ball gaze and enable business outcomes. So these are my 3 points.
Fantastic point of view. Srinath, please tell us how the role of HR leaders has changed over time.
I think amazing insights from Sahil, Mohit, and thanks to BW for this, wonderful discussion on AI. I think Sahil and Mohit brought out important, pertinent points. What I want to call upon is, if you look at the last 100 years, the technology component of jobs has increased steadily, right? Industrial revolution, pre-industrial revolution era, and the component was probably 10 to 20%. Now it has gone up to about 70%, right? And more in the days to come. Earlier, what could be done by a human efficiently and by collaborating with fellow colleagues now is at the call of a button, right? And more organized, more efficient, faster, better, and also cheaper. And the skills and competencies that you could call upon using an AI is much, much higher, right? And at a swift of thought. Probably, I would like to link it to the title that Bill Gates wrote, Business at the Speed of Thought, right? So that is where currently we are at, right? And from an HR perspective, I think we are moving steadily into a strategic powerhouse in terms of incorporating AI in all facets of our roles. When I say that, for a simple, we make automotive, scooters, electric scooters. So the component of technology that seeps into just the dashboard and the skills that are needed to power that is almost equivalent to entire workforce that are needed to build the entire body of the rest of the scooter, right? In terms of technology, in terms of skills and competencies required. So therefore, the necessity to adapt to better ways and co-pilot our strategic direction with AI is very, very pertinent. You can't live without it, right? So how do you use it ethically to make a difference, impact, and bring in a positive society around is up to us. And AI is also applied imagination. How do we apply our imagination to be able to drive the necessary outcomes in the world to make things better and better as we move forward as a race, as a society, as a species, right? I think fundamentally, if I have to go back and anchor on Deloitte's Human Capital Trends report, 74% of HR leaders now view AI as a critical enabler for workforce planning, skills forecasting, and generating great employee experiences. You could do amazing things with less number of folks. So traditional job-based models are giving way to skill-based workforce planning, right? So leaders today are also data scientists, career architects, and also futurists who are dreaming big, enabling big, and creating that positive society around. I think those are the points that I want to share.
Fantastic point of view. And you briefly mentioned about the ethics also. So here I would like to ask Mohit that what are the key ethical challenges the HR leaders face today while implementing AI in the workforce and how these challenges can be addressed?
Sure. Thanks, Bilquis. I'll just build on the thoughts, the great thoughts being shared by Srinath and Sahil. Right? Sahil touched upon what we feed into the machines actually. Yeah? What is the system learning, and being careful about the what the system is learning, because that will create the biases that may go into different decisions. So being aware of that and having a mechanism to audit and take care of that, that will be one part of it. It's democratizing data, right? And that creates a responsibility, that is the data of the individuals and that of the organization. So that will be the second concern to deal with. The third is that it is uh, creating a, while it's a big bang in terms of the efficiency, yeah, or the technology advancement, it is also creating a pressure, a different kind of pressure of being real time available, 24 hours available. So how do we train, educate, and make our workforce leverage it consciously? So that will be the another ethical thing that we need to do, that while we leverage the technology, we also work on the inner technology of being mindful, being conscious, being heartful, to take care of the well-beings of individuals, our teams, our families. That will be the another thing to deal with. The fourth thing which I see, that yes, it's a disruption. Yeah. So, and we have faced many disruptions earlier. So it will have an impact on the way the jobs are being done, and also jobs as such. So how do we proactively as HR leaders start visualizing the future of work, start visualizing the work design, and accordingly start reskilling the people to tackle the new opportunities with an enthusiasm, instead of being caught on the wrong side of not being an ally to the change which is already happening. So these are the four challenges that will be throwing up. And the way I see it, that is, one is we need to have a clear policy on the ethical usage of AI. We need to collaborate within the organization and outside the organization. That is in terms of creating more and more awareness around it, and training around it, creating dialogues around it is always something that will be encouraged to use the AI ethically, apart from the audits and the corrective mechanisms.
Very well said. When we are talking about the processes here, Sahil, I want to understand from you that how can HR ensure that AI-driven decision-making processes in recruitment and employee development and such processes remain fair and unbiased? How do we do that?
I think the answer to your question is in the question itself, right?
Yeah,
Because come to think of it, it is so classic that you're saying AI decision-making process.
right.
I am a firm believer of the fact that AI should not take decisions. I think AI should only enable decision-making. The moment you allow AI to take decisions, we're heading for disaster. Because AI only knows what you're telling the system, right? Also, when you look at LLMs, you also look at various inputs that go into the data sets. You realize that if you've given a limited data set, that's only as much as the system knows. The moment you increase the data set, add the complexity, you will see that the response that you get from the technology changes. So Submission number one, only allow for AI to guide decision making, not take decisions. Number two, a lot of inputs that go into the system, whether it is on recruitment or performance development or otherwise, I think it is important for us as HR professionals to also close the loop. Many a times when we have a problem or we want a brainstorm or we want an idea, we go to AI, we go to a chat GPT, we go to any other platform, a co-pilot, to ask questions. But what we don't do as much is when we found a solution in a certain context, we don't go and teach the machine what has worked for us as a solution in a certain context. And therefore, what the machine is learning is only problem solving, not how I have solved the problem and what decision did I take based on what factors. And third and most important is, as much as we may talk about AI having a bias, I think the larger bias is with humans. So therefore, are we self-aware to even know what biases we have? And are we able to see through those biases and make conscious decisions? Because otherwise, at the end of it, as they say, right, in the first 5 minutes, you've already made a decision, and the remaining 25 minutes, you're finding various touch points to justify that decision. So can we really be more self-aware to look at a candidate, look at a performance metric, look at an individual, not just as a row in an Excel sheet, but look at not just the effort put in, but more importantly, how have certain key metrics been delivered, under what circumstances? Everybody is not running the same race, everybody is not having the same starting point, and everybody is not running in the same conditions. So if we have sensitivity to some of those metrics, I think AI, along with humans, along with a lot of trend analysis, along with a lot of circumstantial evidence, along with a lot of leaders being on the ground, will be an ideal combination to have rather than getting polarized, whether we want AI taking decisions or only human taking decisions. So I think the answer is in the mid ground.
Fantastic point of view. Amazing. The human-centric view is, that is one thing which we should absolutely focus on when we are deploying AI and technology in the organizations. Srinath, my next question to you is, because you spoke about upskilling also, how can HR leaders foster a culture of continuous learning, relearning, and adaptability in the face of these rapid technological changes?
I think it's a very pertinent question and evergreen one, right? How do we upskill constantly? How do you infuse your workforce, your employees to be able to learn, become better all the time, right? And the only thing scarier than AI taking jobs is humans refusing to learn new ones, right? So, as HR leaders, it is important for us to bring that culture of lifelong learning. If we don't learn with the pace that we are at currently and with the tools that are available, you are already behind, right? You're not even standing where you stood earlier. You're already behind. So, and this is more reiterated more by recent surveys that have captured this very very beautifully. One survey says that engagement and upskilling increases by 60% the moment you integrate AI driven learning platforms, right? So it is important that we put in these tools to be able to make the journey of learning as a culture and enjoyable, right? At the end of the day, if they don't enjoy what they do, the learning will take a back seat. So it'll just be reading, right? So reading to learning to understanding and to applying those things is a curve that needs its own impetus, its own focus and discipline to be able to habituate it and bring it into the culture of the organization. So there are a lot of a lot of investment that has gone into learning platforms, driven by AI. Take in Coursera, LinkedIn, Degree. A whole host of platforms are available today where an employee could enjoy the journey of learning and also feel proud that they have attained certain things. And social media is giving that platform for an employee to go and showcase those aspects, right? So it's almost gamified and fill an employee with pride. I think these are, and also certain organizations, including us, have talent marketplaces where we advertise roles, where AI is helping us map the skills of a employee to the actual job availability, and how they could bridge that gap, if at all, with a course that is available on the platform. So I think these are some of the things that could help employees align themselves to be able to upskill, not only for a job or a role, but to be able to just stay updated, stay learned, and adapt and apply those learnings to day-to-day activities, right? So we could do more with less number of resources today, simply because we have these tools available with us. My grand vision of an AI is, how Mohit started. I visualize it as a divinity with 20 hands, with different tools in each hand, right? A book, anchor, pivot. So I think all this is AI today, right? You could replace all those tools with AI and say different names, and it can adapt to whatever we see. I think the interesting part is to be able to go and say, this is what I want to learn today. This is how I'm going to make a difference, and that is going to enrich the overall aspect of organization, society at large. If we don't learn, we are already behind. We are just following what is being thrust upon us.
Fantastic. Now, Mohit, my next question is to you, because we have seen multiple working models post-COVID. We see hybrid, we see work from home, we see work from office. So, how do you think that AI and technology is effectively managing and helping HR leaders manage and engage the distributed workforce and the hybrid working systems?
Well, thank you, Bilquis, for asking that. And we had a great example during the COVID time, right? The application and adaptation of technology that got done almost overnight, and that has an implication on how do we manage the distributed workforce even more effectively. So one is in terms of how do we manage the virtual meetings more effectively. We have those AI tools which are ensuring the meeting planning, ensuring the minutes of the meeting, which is also ensuring that tasks get assigned, also ensuring reminders get done. That's a boon to kind of you don't require a workforce to do all that job. That is where the three hands of the divinity comes in. That AI is able to help in the productivity. It is also helping in the communication and collaboration more intelligently in a global workforce, or even if it is a distributed workforce across a large country, like in our case. Yeah, it is also helping in terms of understanding the biases that we have been talking about, which may crop in because of the workforce being at different places. It is also helping in terms of creating that uniformity of experience across the distributed geography and distributed workforce. So, in multiple ways, the technology and the AI is helping us in terms of creating a better experience, better collaboration, better unison, and better productivity across the workforce.
Thank you so much for that answer. That was fantastic. Sahil, my next question is to you that with the increasing use of AI and data analytics in HR, we are facing a problem of data privacy also. How can the HR leaders ensure that the data privacy is maintained and still we are able to leverage these tools for the workforce development?
Sure. I think traditionally the workforce was built on the concept of stability, right? Today, we have a workforce which has a multi-generational workforce at play, and we're at a workforce that is focusing on fluidity. Now, when you think of fluidity, you have gig workers coming in, you have senior advisors who are part of your workforce, you will have people who are FTEs and FTS. In all of this, I think the key element is about governance. How do you bring in strict governance mechanisms that allow for data not just to be collected at the time of onboarding, but also more importantly about data protection?
Right.
Where is this data going? Who is consuming this data? We've seen this in various countries across the world, more so with GDPR taking center stage. We've seen large corporations, multinationals, and their CEOs being questioned on what is happening to not just their own data, but even customer data. And therefore, I think as India progresses on this journey, there's a great opportunity to use AI to protect privacy. It is very, very important that organizations like we admire the Tata Group, back in the day when the Tata Group used to actually, think ahead of time in terms of for the workers. And they brought in so many practices even before the regulation came in. I think it is important for India Inc. and corporate India to look at data, look at privacy, more importantly, with focus ahead of time before we have a strong regulation that comes in, and have best practices. Because at the end of the day, data is the new oil, is what we all know. But more importantly, trading data over a period of time is not going to be perceived as ethical business practice. And therefore, if you're not going to be ethical in your dealings, what's going to happen to credibility? So today we know so many organizations that have phenomenal amount of data, and apart from their main business, which may be OTT or anything else, the amount of data that they have is far more richer than the revenues that they're getting from their business. But if that data is not well protected or privacy is not kept in place, the breach of trust of the consumer or the customer is going to be a very heavy price that may even lead to that business getting destroyed. So these are some of my views on data privacy and control as we move ahead into the future.
Fantastic. Srinath, I want to ask you now that, in fact, this is a question for all of you, but Srinath, you can start with this. That what are the new technologies, the emerging technologies do you see which are coming now and which can have significant impact on the workforce development? And how do you prepare your workforce for these changes?
I think it's about ensuring your people adapt to an environment of AI and how they could leverage better and how they could use technology to be able to scale up, to be able to skill up, to be able to apply, to be able to grow and make things better, right? So I think some of the skills that I definitely see is generative AI. And in the field of automotive, a lot of technologies are seeping through in the electric vehicle industry, in the hydrogen vehicle industry. Automotive sector is booming because I come from this sector. And AR and VR training, which was always in the books, which was talked about, not adapted. I see factory lines, the training workforce getting trained on VR and AR today, right? In terms of not actual machines, but they go into a simulated environments and get trained. Predictive analytics is another big thing that has picked up because of all the wonderful data that has been more organized rather than before, is now helping us take much more qualified decisions, ability to predict things, and also create skills which are needed tomorrow, right? So we know exactly if we have to do a Gen AI, Gen 2, Gen 3 kind of platforms made available for our customers. We know exactly what we need to do and what are the skills that drive those, and that can be predicted today if I have to achieve those amount of significant market cap, right? I think how can HR prepare is to start small, build AI fluency within your workforce, co-lead workforce innovation with your people to be able to say, this is how we can do together, right? I think that brings in the human element of aspects of doing work collectively and does not eliminate those aspects, and also ensures that the bias also gets averaged out when you are collectively working on certain projects, right? So those things get addressed. I think these are some of the pertinent ways that we could definitely bring in to the structure technology, which can help and amplify whatever we do today much, much better.
Great. Mohit, your views about this. What are the emerging technologies that you see in particularly in your industry that you would like to highlight?
Yeah. So Srinath touched upon it. and it is touching lives all across. Right? So we are using AR and VR for the training before we actually deploy the person on the job, say on our shop floor, and that takes care of that comfort for the person, comfort for the organization, and can preempt the safety incidents which may be regrettable actually. Right? Big data, which is there, right? So fortunately, simplifying that big data gathering and big data analysis, which is now helping not only the people in the management cadre, but also the supervisors and the workmen who are actually working on the shop floor, being friendly with that so-called big data. How do we demystify that? Uh, AI is taking care of lots of things which can be done efficiently, and also take care of the futuristic things like predictive analytics, like Netflixing the learning, like creating, being in touch on the real-time sentiment and doing the interventions over there. My only balancing act which remains over here is that while we play with this technology well, which is happening outside, and we're leveraging it well, for us to keep leveraging it better, the inner technology, and that is where we keep training our workforce not only on the external technology of AI, AR, VR, big data, analytics, but also on the inner technology that is mindfulness, heartfulness, meditation, active listening. All those things are very important to leverage, have the capacity to utilize, have the human capacity to utilize the exponential explosion in the technology outside.
So here, when you're talking about the human capabilities, Sahil, my question to you is different now. It is not the same question. I want to ask you, is AI replacing human intellect? And has the use of technology really streamlined the work? Or technology has, reduced the thinking power of the managers, especially the younger generation?
Do you want me to give you an honest answer or a
Bilkul
sugar-coated
honest
answer?
answer.
Okay, so the honest, candid answer is yes and no. Yes, AI has replaced those people who have hit their level of incompetence. So a lot of people who have plateaued on their competence levels have now found an amazing guinea pig in the form of AI, because they don't need to use their brains anymore. If they need to go and do a keynote speech, they will go and Google something, they will go onto a chat GPT, they will get pointers and they'll go and rattle it off, right? The real difference is when someone who asks them an unscripted question from the audience, and then you will see they will go all over the place. And in a couple of seconds, you get to know the difference between chalk and
Yes.
cheese. That's point number one. Point number two is, you see the mavericks. The mavericks are actually out there who are leveraging AI very effectively, whether it is Gen AI for HR chatbots, whether it is AI in the whole process of recruiting. You saw a lot of deep fake happening where there was lip syncing happening during COVID times. Interviews were given virtually. There was someone prompting. There was a laptop behind a laptop and people reading from screens. People developed technology through natural face recognition to realize, is Sahil lying, or is Sahil being prompted, or is Sahil genuinely looking slightly distracted, but he's not looking at another screen there, but he's actually thinking and answering, because if the left eyebrow grows up, so on and so forth, right? I think Mohit spoke beautifully about sentiment analytics, and emotional AI is the way to go. I'll give you a classic case. Today, I complete 14 years with my organization, okay? And for the fun of it, I wrote to ChatGPT that I completed 14 years with my current organization. And I wrote there, completed Vanvas, okay? And I
I got
said,
it.
tell me what next, okay? And you'll be very, very surprised to know, and I'm going to take a minute to just read this out to you. ChatGPT gave me three options. Said you can take the Ram Rajya route, which is you stay and you continue to reign, which is
Wow.
stick around, leverage your deep expertise, carve out a legendary legacy at your organization. Option two, take the Hanuman leap, which is new challenges. Take a bold step into a different domain, get into your different areas of consulting, academia, so on and so forth. And the third option was the SAGE path, which is break, reflect, and reinvent. Now, come to
Amazing.
think of
Amazing.
it, right?
Thanks for sharing. This is amazing, actually.
It's
Yeah.
amazing, Mohit. Come to think of it, if I had to just go to the Himalayas or sit by the sea or the promenade or have my hot chocolate, I don't think I would have got these ideas. I would have got the cliche ideas.
Yeah,
It's
this is
reflecting
sage on the
Absolutely.
screen.
Sorry,
Sage on the screen.
sorry, Srinath.
No, I was saying this is sage on the screen, right?
Sage on the screen, absolutely. And come to think of it, I wouldn't have even got these ideas. But today, at the click of a button in 30 seconds,
So it's reflecting and
I'm
meaning for you, right? Beyond
absolutely,
that's amazing, actually.
absolutely. So what I'm trying to say is that the Mavericks are saying, hey, you know what? I have a great servant at my disposal, that is AI. Now, the beauty is, am I going to act on it or not, which is in my advantage? Because we all have choices to make, but we need to remember that we are responsible for the consequences of the choices we make. I'm going to share with you one use case before we wrap up and I hand it back to you. We say Netflix of learning, AI, I can choose what I want to learn. I can learn on the go, bite-sized learning. All of that is fantastic. But do you also realize that that very intelligent Gen Alpha or Gen Beta or whatever generation is coming into the workforce is also using AI to crack your learning assessments? Is also putting out all your organization data there to get answers so that they can crack the assessment because they haven't spent enough time going through the learning material because it's a mandatory training. It raises two concerns. Concern number one is about values and integrity. And concern number two, which is even more dangerous, is about your data. So if your data of whatever you're teaching your workforce is going out in the open, the system is learning it, and 100 people across the globe are also learning. All they need to do is be smart enough to realize if your employees are putting data out, which is not supposed to go out. So therefore, I'm saying while it's a great debate on how much we can leverage AI, we also need to be very mindful of how many firewalls are we creating that don't end up burning us.
Fantastic. That was amazing. But we are very short of time now. And, quickly, I want to take one last piece of advice for the HR leaders and for the professionals in HR field. Mohit, one piece of advice that you would like to give to HR leaders.
So keeping the cup empty, that is keep learning and being accountable for the experiences of stakeholders that are passed on to AI. Right? So while we'll keep learning, while we keep improving things, but accountability of experiences, fairness, uh, that transparency that remains with us.
Great. Srinath, your advice to the HR leaders.
I just have one line. I would say, if you want to predict future, build it yourself.
Fantastic. Great. Sahil,
I don't
some
think
final words from you?
I don't think I'm qualified to give advice, but all I can say is that never forget that at the core of HR is the heart. And as much of technology as we may bring in, but when someone is depressed, someone is sad, don't send a chat GPT message. Walk up to that person, sit with that person, hold the person's hand, give them a nice jadoo ki jhapi, because I don't think, even though China is building robots to give hugs, I don't think a human hug or
I
its
love
genuine warmth can be replaced. So please
Nothing
keep
can
the human
replace it.
alive.
Yeah.
Keep the human alive.
Totally with you. Thank you so much. That was a wonderful conversation we had here and wonderful views. It was beyond my, imagination. I couldn't, think that this conversation is going to be so interesting. Thank you so much, all of you. Thank you, Mohit. Thank you, Srinath, and thank you, Sahil, for being with us. We will be in touch. Thank you so much.